So this is chapter 11. We're going to be talking about the interactions between microbes and humans. So we're going to first spend a few moments talking about the human microbiome. And this is something that is relatively new to science, thinking about the resident microorganisms that live in or on our bodies. Our normal microbiota often includes pathogens. So we don't think about that. We're normally thinking about the microbes that are on us that are kind of healthy. We talked about microbes that live in our intestines and help to produce different vitamins for us. But there's also different pathogens, and they estimate that about 27% of adults carry Staphylococcus aureus on their skin. They never show any symptoms of any type of infection, but they simply have it living on their skin. And so even though this bacteria can cause skin infections, and if it happens to enter a cut or get into food, then it can start to release toxins. It can be something that can cause life-threatening sepsis when it enters the bloodstream. So there are pathogens that can be part of our microbiome as well. But fortunately, the majority of the normal microbiota is pretty much harmless, and they tend to protect us by crowding out potential pathogens that might otherwise grow on or within us. So the Human Microbiome Project is actually an effort that is sponsored by the U.S. National Institute of Health. They were interested in collecting more information about our microbiome and kind of the synergistic effect of all these microbes living within us. So it was basically initiated to characterize all the microbes in and on our bodies so that we can learn more about potential link between what these little microbes do for us and potential other conditions that they might have a hand in. So such things as obesity, food allergies, heart disease, maybe even diabetes. There's some interest to see, is there a link here between what each individual, the microbes that each individual carry, and is there a difference between somebody who has a food allergy and somebody who doesn't have a food allergy based upon their microbiome? Are more people who have a certain microbiome profile more susceptible to being obese than somebody who has a completely different microbiome profile? So many parts of the human body actually have microbial life. There are at least as many microbial cells in and on us as there are human cells. So I always tell people, you do not live alone. Definitely not. We are actually a colony if you think about it. There's so many different organisms that live within us. So our skin, the nose, our mouth, our guts, our genital urinary tract basically harbor the most microbes. And these microbes definitely are bacteria from the domain bacteria. They can be even archaea are present. We're just starting to look for those. And also some eukaryotic microbes might be present. And the interesting part is they're believed to train our immune system. So they can actually help us. And they also produce vitamins, as I mentioned before. They can help us digest food. And studies show that they might even have an impact on our moods and our brain function. So where do we find our microbiota as part of our microbiome? Definitely any area that's exposed to the outside of the body can have bacteria or microbes on it. So external surfaces, but also our mucous membranes that are open to the outside of the body. It's suggested that our gut microbiome contains about 40,000 species, some 40,000 different species. So it's pretty amazing. And it was also thought there were parts of our body that did not have bacteria at all. And new evidence is showing that potentially there are bacteria even in these areas. So for the longest time, everybody thought, urine was sterile. And you always see those survivor shows that, if you don't have water, drink your urine or something like that. It's sterile. But that's no longer thought to be true. They have found at least DNA that is not human DNA in urine. And so there it's believed that there could be part of our microbiome present. Same thing with our brain. Once again, found DNA, so potentially there could be something living there as well. So there's a lot of areas of our body that were once thought to be sterile that we're finding at least DNA and think that it may not be as sterile as we once thought. Now, a few functions of our microbiome. We already mentioned that it's useful in helping us to digest and metabolize food, helping us to break down food and providing nutrients for us. We already mentioned microbial antagonism, helping us to fend off other potential pathogens by colonizing areas and exuding certain toxins to help ward off any potential pathogens. Our gut microbiome, we're interested in seeing how it affects your weight. We already talked about obesity, but it's also thought that it could affect your mood, your risk for disease, and how you react to different drugs depending upon your microbiome profile. What different microbes do you have there, and in what numbers, and how does this affect how you react to certain things? Now, where does our microbiome come from? Well, it starts even before we were born. So it's believed that babies are colonized definitely during their first days of life after they are born. They're colonized by anything they come encounter with, through interactions with their environment, through interactions with their caregivers. So any humans, any animals in the family, during the first days of life, they're colonized by those microbes. They have found that babies that are born by cesarean section have different profiles than those who are delivered vaginally. Babies that are breastfed have different microbiota than babies that are formula fed. So a lot of research suggests that some of these microbes may even start to colonize us even before birth. So researchers have found that the placenta that typically produces certain antibodies that are passed from the mother to the fetus also has low levels of microbes within it. So that's kind of interesting that the placenta may be transferring some of these microbes to the baby early on. So the placenta's microbiota, they say, is very similar to that of the mouth. So it might be that these oral microbiota are making their way into the bloodstream and travel to the placenta. Bacteria has also been isolated from the umbilical cord blood. And so that's also suggests that the womb is not as sterile as we once thought. But regardless, it is known that the normal microbiota expands and continues to develop from the early weeks of life, and of course evolves as we go into adulthood and the different contacts that we make throughout our life.